problem number 13 on our 8-4 extra practice worksheet. Our question mark right here, this is what our x is going to be. I'm not for sure why this particular worksheet puts question marks instead of the x. I'm going to put an x there. Every time I see a question mark, I'm going to put an x. So we're trying to find this x that's right here. So we do the same steps though. I'm identifying this is my angle that I'm focusing on. And in this case, I'm going to try to solve for, right? From this angle right here, this 22 is right next to or adjacent to this angle. So I'm going to call it the adjacent side. This 10 is on the opposite side, right? Opposite. Now, I've made, purposefully, I might add, a particular mistake that a lot of people make. When it's right next to it, a lot of you I've noticed are tempted to call it the adjacent side because it's right next to. And that makes sense. It's adjacent to it, right? But remember, if the right angle is here, this side has to take the title hypotenuse. It can't be considered the adjacent side because technically the adjacent side is talking about the adjacent leg, right? This is the hypotenuse. This would be the adjacent leg because it's right next to it, but it's not the hypotenuse, okay? I know that's tricky, but the adjacent will always or will never be the hypotenuse. Like what I did there, made a common error on purpose just to teach you a lesson. Isn't that great? Gosh, Mr. Harmless, you're such a good teacher. All right, so angle, what uses the opposite and the hypotenuse? Opposite and hypotenuse, the only trig function that uses opposite and hypotenuse is the sine function. So sine of x, the angle still goes over here, even though it's an x, equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. All right, so what I'm going to plug into my calculator to find this angle, I'm going to plug in because I need to figure out what angle this is. We have our calculators have a special function. It's called the inverse sine. Inverse sine of this number. Now I could do 10 divided by 22 first and have a decimal put in here, but since our calculators are capable of it, why don't we just put the 10 divided by 22 in there this way, okay? So that's what I'm going to do. So let's see here. So we're going to get the inverse sine, we do second and then sine, and then 10 divided by 22. And I like to close my parentheses. I don't always do it, but it's good habit to be in. 27.03. This actually, the directions say round to the nearest whole degree. So it'd be 27 degrees. If you're used to rounding to the nearest tenth, it would have been still the same thing. Either way you go. Okay. So there is the answer to problem number 13.